Morning, Water's Edge. How are we doing? Good. We're starting at 10:10 on that clock, which means it's probably 10:13. Yep. I'll have to update that at some point. Listen, I know that it's summer and we're going to have people that'll come late, and that's okay. But we're going to get started and honor the people that are here. This morning, we're not going to have a worship service via song this morning. But if you're like, oh, I really was looking forward to that today, good news for you is down at Lower Harbor, there's going to be a second service there's a handful of churches coming together. It's going to be 1 hour long. They're going to work really hard to keep it to 1 hour. I didn't commit to that this morning, so I can go as long as I want. I'm just kidding. But they'll do an hour down there. Lorenzo Sewell is going to be down there. I heard him last night. He was really good. It was encouraging. He was moving. So hopefully, if you have time today, you can head down there. They'll do some worship via song and then worship in the Word. So we're going to hop into the Word today. We're going to look at the Beatitudes in just a minute. But just wanted to highlight that coming from 1 to 2 down there. You're going to want to bring your own chair. They don't have a ton of chairs down there, so bring your own chair. If you don't want to be in the sun, bring an umbrella or something like that, or find a tree. Do you want to get baptized? Come talk with me in a couple weeks. I've had a few people that have been, at that spot of like, I think I want to get baptized. I want to talk more about it. So I've been having some conversations with some individuals, and I just wanted to say, hey, you know what? Let's just put a date on the calendar. That doesn't mean this is the only date. And we might get to the 17th, and people are like, I still need to talk about it a little bit more. Then that's okay, right? Like, I can run. We might have some other Sundays. I want people to get baptized, and that's okay. So we'll figure out the time that works best. But right now, we're looking towards August 17th. So if you're in that boat of I'm interested, come talk to me. We'll do that after church, probably around 1 o'clock. On the 17th, I'll give you kind of a target spot at Clark Lambros. And it's a good place if you want to go, do baptism, and then hang out and spend some time. You can bring picnic and hang out at the beach. So that'll be the 17th. August 21st, it's actually through the 23rd. I need to update that. The youth, we're going to do a youth campfire and canoe trip along the Two-Hearted River. So that's kind of west of Tequamanon, east of Pictured Rocks. There's going to be 2 days of canoeing. So we'll probably canoe about 4 or 5 hours. And that's not like hardcore. We have to like go as hard as we can for 4 hours. It's enjoying nature. It's getting into the wilderness. It's spending some time in that scenario, that environment. And then you'll make camp. You'll hang out in tents. We're going to talk about God. We're going to encourage each other. And we're going to play. So we're going to have some fun. That'll be the 21st to 23rd. Oh, I got it right. 21st to 24th. I got it perfect. In my head, I was thinking that the 24th was a Monday. But you know what? I was right the first time. That doesn't often happen. So I'll take the win. That's the thing, man. Take your wins when you got them. The other thing that we're looking at doing is August 24th, the Sunday, the 24th, is having a Welcome Back to College NMU students. They're in the process of traveling. They're going to be getting up here soon. If you're like, hey, you know what? I am interested in helping with that, please talk to Crystal or myself. We're going to do some planning here in the next week or so that we can just make sure that they feel welcomed and loved and all of that. Sound good? Good. All right. I had you guys do this last week. I'm going to have you stand again. Those that ideally can read this, read it. If you can't read it with me, just listen. So let's read Matthew 5 together. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Heavenly Father, I just thank you. God, I ask that you would Give us eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart that is soft towards you today. And I am thankful for your goodness. I'm thankful for your faithfulness. I thank you for your mercy, your desire to bring wholeness and peace, your willingness to comfort us as we mourn. Man, you are good. Help us see your goodness today. I ask this in your name. Amen. Okay, so we had some of you that were here last week. I just want to do a quick recap. What do you remember of what we talked? Because this is a huge passage, and there's just a lot of layers that are tied with it. So what was some of the layers, some of the things you remember from last week that we talked about, and then we're going to build off of it today. So what do you remember from last week? Go. What was that? Mamzer. Okay, who can tell me what a mamzer is? Yeah, so the outsider, right? So those that were excluded from the presence of God, excluded from the temple, that weren't quite pure enough, didn't have the right bloodline, that had a mom or a dad out of wedlock, or a mom or a dad that wasn't pure Jewish descent, somebody that was essentially on the outside. And we talked a little bit about how Matthew essentially was considered an outsider. Why was he an outsider? As a tax collector. So you're a Jewish tax collector, and you're taxing the Jews. It's like, oh man, you chose to stab us in the back, right? So the community would have looked at Matthew, who's the writer of this gospel, which is good news. He's writing a good news story about a new kingdom, about a new king, and he's writing to the Jews as a person who was excluded, who was a mamzer, right? And he's writing this through that lens. Okay, keep going. What else do we remember from last week? Yeah, the mercy and the judgment. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today. I set this up so you can visually see the chiasm. There we go. And in the center of the chiasm, we talk about how you go into that justice and you find the mercy, and that's the pivot point. So we're going to talk a little bit about that center point of a chiasm. Those that are new to an understanding of chiasm, Hebrew writers would write in such a way that they would put layers upon layers upon layers into their text. And it's a way for you to understand the text was the mirrored parts of it. And the center of the chiasm would be, hey, this is the focal point. This is the pivot point that you need to understand. This is where the transition happens. Okay, keep going. What else do you guys remember? It's not a test. It's an invitation. Spoken in Capernaum. So we talked a little bit about Capernaum. What do you guys remember about Capernaum? Yeah, you got a hotbed. So right coming into it, it talks about, hey, Jesus went, John the Baptist, he's in prison, and Jesus went up to Galilee, Galilee of the nations, Galilee of the Gentiles. Right? So those are the two things that it talks about in the Remez is, hey, Galilee of the nations, Galilee of the Gentiles. When you go north, it's like all these trade routes, the spice routes, everything is going and converging through this area. So if you were to go and say, hey, you know what? I'm the next rabbi, and I want to make sure that everybody understands how religious I am and how I understand everything perfectly, and if I'm doing all the right stuff, I'm centering my ministry going south to Jerusalem around the temple to the place where you have all of the people that are the Jews of the Jews. These are the ones that haven't compromised like the people up in Capernaum, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so you've got Capernaum that's up there, and we talked a little bit about the name Caper and Nahum, right? And we talked about how this is a city that they would have tied back to what city? Nineveh, okay? And we talked about some of Nahum's message, and he is comforting them, right? And he's comforting them that, hey, guess what? Justice is coming, right? We talked about that last week. Justice is coming for those, Assyria's coming in, justice is coming for those that have treated us poorly, right? We talked a little bit about before him, you had a guy named Jonah. Jonah went to Nineveh, right? And we talked a little bit about how Jonah was struggling internally with this whole thing of, man, if I go there, I know God is going to relent from his anger. He's going to relent from the justice, and he's going to have compassion and mercy on these people. And then when God does have compassion and mercy on them, he's angry enough to die. And so God gives them an experience. He doesn't just say, hey, let me just explain it to you. He invites him into that experience, and he gives him shade through the leaf plant. Did he need the shade? No, because the verses before it said that he built himself a shade. He already had shade. God gave him extra shade, right? And so he has this experience where there's this shade that comes over top of him, and he celebrates this extra shade. He's like, this thing is awesome. This plant wasn't here yesterday. It's this massive plant here today. This is great. And then the next day, God brings a worm, and the worm does what? Eats it. And he's like, are you kidding me? God, I knew you were like this. And God's like, what? Are you angry about this plant and this worm? And he's like, yeah, I'm angry enough I should die over this plant, right? Because God is inviting him into an experience to understand the questions he's wrestling. So many times we have questions of God, and we're like, God, I want an answer. And we're hoping that he's going to give us this, okay, let me sit down and tell you this answer with like words. And he's like, listen, I so many times try to tell you in words and you don't listen. Let me invite you into an experience. So don't be offended when you're like, want to know something about him, and then it's like, feels like the opposite is happening. He's inviting you into an experience to actually understand the character behind it. Does that make sense? And so in it, he's got this process where it's like, okay, the worm ate this tree. He's wanting to die. We didn't write this book called Nineveh where 120,000 people in a day are like, let's repent, let's go towards God, which is an incredible event. 120,000 people, and that's not the focus. It's about one man's transformation who wants justice so bad for this people, he was willing to die for it. And then when God gave him mercy, the people, he's so angry he wanted to die again, right? And then he's willing and wanting to die over this plant that was there for a day. Now, for those that can see this, that experience, God is basically saying, hey, listen, this plant, it doesn't grow like this in a day. This doesn't belong in your world, that a plant in one day can grow this big to give you shade. It didn't have seed. You didn't plant it. You didn't water it. It came all the way up. This plant doesn't belong in this world. So the just thing about this plant that doesn't belong in this world is that I bring something to take it out of this world because it doesn't belong here. You want justice for this tree? Justice for this tree is that it doesn't belong. You have mercy for this tree that doesn't belong, but you don't have mercy for a people that do. Do you see that? He's having him wrestle with justice and mercy over this bush, and God's like, okay, now apply this concept to the people in front of you. Will you consider that my heart is for mercy, that I am slow to anger, that justice will come, and it comes a generation later, and Nahum's like, I'm going to comfort you guys. Listen, justice came for the Ninevites. Okay, so city of Capernaum, like Scott was saying, it's this area that is an area where they have wrestled over justice versus mercy. That's a reminder of Nineveh. Ironically, later on, Jesus comes back to Capernaum right after feeding 4,000 people in the Decapolis area, 10 cities that are like Nineveh. He comes back and they're like, hey, we're going to meet you at the shore here, Capernaum. We demand a sign. If you're really the Son of God, we want to see it. And he says, you know what? The sign you're going to find is the sign of Jonah. Right? Now, we're going to get into that because there's a whole lot of layers to that. But one of those is you're in a spot of Capernaum, right, that was literally that justice versus mercy tension. Now, the other thing that we talked about last week, and if you weren't here and you want some of the notes, we can say that, is that root word also is tied to the kaperet, which is the mercy seat. Like God's intent is to bring mercy. So in this location, Jesus comes up a hill, and he comes up a hill with his disciples. Who else is at this location with the Beatitudes? So you have some Pharisees, you have some Sadducees, you've got the multitude. It says specifically that there's the Decapolis, the 10 city. You've got people that are from Syria. You've got Gentiles. You've got Jewish people. You've got people, because the verses right before, they were bringing the poor, the orphaned, the people that have physical ailments, all the people that are like the outcasts, the people that are demon-possessed. You've got quite a crew that are there, right? And if you're a disciple, you're sitting here and you're like, okay, my rabbi's about to teach me, and we talked about this last week, you've got your conservative leaders, you got your liberal leaders, you've got those that are undocumented and those that, you've got everything in here. All of the tensions that you feel in America from every group of the people that are these or those, you put them all in a group to watch you learn from your rabbi. Does that make sense? And he's sitting there and he says, you want to know what the new gospel is? You want to know what the kingdom is about? You want to know what it's like to follow me? This is the first thing that you hear from Jesus in the book of Matthew. Hey, we're going to go through the Beatitudes. This is what we're going to teach. So what it's about is blessings, right? And last week we talked about this, right? Is it really one of those things where you're like, hey, you know what? Whew, I feel really blessed that I'm poor in spirit. How many people are like, yeah, you know what? I'm really hungry and thirsty. If you're hungry and thirsty, that means you weren't what? Satisfied, right? If you are mourning, does that mean that you were already comforted? No. This is a thing in every generation, every society. Even in this one, you can understand. You feel like, you know what? The person, the family that has made it, you have finally got your degree, you finally got your house, you finally got your kids, you finally got the money, you finally got out of debt, you finally got the promotion, you finally got whatever the finally got, then you're like, that person is blessed. God has given them favor. Right? And here you have a pronouncement. Wait a second. The person that is at the start of the journey, that just started going to school, that just started working at a job, that just started looking for kids, that just wanted a relationship, hopefully it's going to be marriage. Hey, at the beginning, you need to know that you are blessed. Right? And you've got the Pharisees and you've got the Sadducees that are sitting there watching this. The people that have for generations said, you're out, you're out, you're out, you're out. You can't even go into the temple. You can't go and spend time in the presence of God. You don't have the right lineage. You don't have the right knowledge. Everything is an external experience where since the law of Moses, there's been this veil where, okay, it's all just obedience, 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 obedience. Let me build this thing from the outside in. And the outside can't transform the in. Does that make sense? It's the backwards way of doing it. It's like, if you obey me, if you love me, you obey my commands, right? Should we have obedience? Yes. But if you start with, if I'm obedient, this proves that I love, you're working with the wrong paradigm. Does that make sense? You can't move from obedience into love that way, but if you actually love, obedience happens. Does that make sense? I could have a slave, and the slave could be obedient all day with never loving me. That's a slave relationship. And everything Jesus is saying is, I'm trying to move you from slavery into sonship. I'm trying to invite you into my love. I'm trying to invite you into my grace and my mercy and my kindness. It's it's his kindness that leads to what? I thought it was me bashing people over the head with shame. Isn't that my job? You hear what I'm saying? When you exude his kindness, it leads to repentance. When it's love is the thing that transforms, okay? So we talked about how, hey, you know what? This is a really crazy theology because he's sitting in front of a whole lot of people that are like, all of these other people, the Assyrians, those that are demon-possessed, those especially from the Decapolis, they don't know our Torah. They haven't memorized the scriptures. They don't have all the right theology. They didn't even come to Jerusalem. They didn't even try to get into the temple for us to kick them out. Right? And here you have the Son of God coming to them first and saying, you're blessed, and you're blessed, and you're blessed. Okay, we talked about the mamzer, right? The one that is outcast, the one that is excluded, the one that can't quite make it, right? And Jesus is talking, I think he's talking at this portion to the disciples, and he's saying, blessed are they, and blessed are those. And as he's looking at the people that are in the crowd are like, whew, I am one that's depraved in spirit. I don't have spirit. I am poor. I'm broken. And blessed are those that mourn, and you got the other one that's over here that, like, they've been longing to be healed from something, or they've got somebody that's close, or they've been grieving, and, like, they're mourning. They haven't been comforted yet, and they're like, I hear that. That's me. Blessed are they. And they're like, I don't know how I feel blessed, but, like, he's talking about the theys and the thems, and all of my life I've been called a they and a them, of this group and of that group, right? And he's going down the line, and he's calling them all that. And then we'll get to verse 11 later. But let's take a look at this. Blessed are the poor in spirit. If you're poor in spirit, we're talking about it. There's a lacking. You're blessed when you are lacking. Okay? Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the ones that have lost. Blessed are the meek. Oh, those that are in the fire. It's this long period of time that you're in the fire. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. Not those that have been satisfied, those that are hungering and thirsting for righteousness. And last week we talked about one layer of this, and that layer is, I want you to put this in perspective. I want you to think of somebody who doesn't know Jesus. I want you to think about this world, the broken. Okay? It might have been you in the past. It might be you now. It might be a friend, a neighbor, somebody, a coworker. I don't know. I want you in your mind to think of somebody who you're like, they have a depraved spirit, and they have lost things. They've lost relationships, and usually they're the ones that are cutting things off, right? They're in a fire, and they don't even know it, and all they want is what they think is rightfully theirs. They're the justice warriors of, you know what, I want what's right, and you see a justice in them that's like, I was wronged. And if I was wronged by somebody in my human flesh and in my strength, what do I try to do? I try to settle the score. You guys see that? Okay, I want you to put this group of people right here for now. We're going to pick them up again. I'm going to talk right now. That's what we talked about last week. I want to talk about a different layer of the Beatitudes. You guys ready for that? Good. And then we're going to connect them once my iPad updates. I spent too long over here. So, in Hebrew thought, I got this right here. Hebrew thought, life with God is a walk, okay? Life with God is a walk. I used to talk about this all the time, not only with a youth group that I used to lead, but also at a rehab center that I was at, where I want you to think about life being a walk. Now, if I'm starting this journey right here, right, and then I fall right here, right, what the world will tell you and what you normally tell yourself, I have failed, I have fallen, I have to do what? Start back over. No, there's an understanding that there is a walk, right? If I fall, what do? I get back up. And when I get back up, where am I at? Way further than where I started, but let me just keep going, right? Now, if I'm going on a hike, and this is the path that I'm going, and I start doing this, right? Do I have to go and start over again? No. Do I have to retrace all my steps and be like, let me find the path? No, what he ends up doing is if you have the guide, which there is a guide, the Holy Spirit, God the Father, he's going to bring you and he's going to direct you back to the path. And the good news is, in his incredible, beautiful mercy, as you're coming through the jungle and you're cutting a path back to the path, guess what? The person who's behind you, who followed you down this path, sometimes it's your children, into your brokenness, right? They don't have to bushwhack as you come back. They'll follow the path back. The people that are following you will follow you back to the path of God. You will find people that are lost. Does that make sense? And as you come back to the path, you invite them with you, right? People that aren't necessarily even looking for a path, if they're just lost, but they see you going somewhere, you can go into the ones and be like, hey, come with me, right? And you can bring them along with you. I don't know if you guys can see that visual, but we're going to do that. Okay, interpretation of the law of Moses was often about obedience, discipline, and the mental assent of doing right. Okay, so it's a theological, it's a mind understanding, and it became legalistic, right? So there was a legalism a lot of times with their understanding, their interpretation of the law. Okay, the Beatitudes, and what comes next is Jesus communicating the heart behind the actions. All right, so it's a walk of transformation. That transformation moves from a humbling humanity to embracing God's justice and mercy to becoming a vessel that carries his peace and presence. So I want to break that down a verse at a time. You guys good with that? Good. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Poor in spirit, the Hebrew word for that is anava, which is a humility. It's not only just a poverty of like material possessions, but it's a spiritual emptiness. It's like if I am a vessel that's emptied out, okay? So if I've got nothing, I got nothing good to give, I'm emptied out. That's a kind of a poor in spirit, right? There's a couple verses, Psalm 34:18 and Isaiah 57:15, that talk about those that are humble and lowly, basically have no one but God. All right, the starting point of spiritual transformation is surrender. It's becoming aware that with all of my strength, I've got nothing. All of my best is what? Filthy rags. Everything, like all of my best on my own strength by myself is not super awesome, right? It's a surrender of saying, wait a second, I should maybe move from strength to spirit. I need to go to faith. I need to actually do that by coming aware that, wait a second, I thought that I was full, and now I'm aware that I'm empty, okay? And when you realize that you're empty, it leads to a mourning. Mourning as in mourning. I want to just talk a little bit about a couple things, though. It's a little bit harder to see sometimes in America. So I'm going to give you some things that are really stark experiences for me personally when I was overseas. So one of them, you guys have probably heard me talk about this one before, some of you. When I was in Haiti one of the times, this was before the earthquake, I was up in a place called Gonaive, which was the voodoo capital of Haiti. And while I was there, orphans would go missing, and there were drum beats and fires and everything out. We had people that came onto the property with machetes looking for me. We were in a building that was like, didn't have any lights, didn't have any electricity, didn't have any furniture, didn't have any water, didn't have a bathroom, it was a concrete shell of a building, not fully finished. On the same property, they were working to build a church for all these orphans, right? And so we were there, and we were working hard, and we were hungry, and we were thirsty. My biggest meal of the day was one slice of bread with peanut butter on it. And I was so thankful for it, right? You want to talk about hungering and thirsting? I lost lots of weight, right, because I was hungry. I was moving 150-pound rocks over and over and over again, and then hand-doing cement so that we could start laying out this thing. And all of these orphans came to this church service this one morning. And I was ahead of my whole team in being ready. And so they brought me in, and I was super, super grateful that like I accidentally sat on the right side. They had the boys on this side and the girls on that side. And so I sat down, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but this is about as tan as I ever get. My normal colors in life are white and red and white and red and off-white. When I get to off-white, I felt good, right? I was like, pretty tan. And then I walked next to somebody who's tan, and I'm like, pretty white, right? And that's okay. Those are the colors that God made me. But at this point in time, I'm down in Haiti, which has got a lot of sun. I was pretty red at this point. And so I was over there, and the kids thought it was the funniest thing in the world that I was a color-changing person. They could touch me, and I'd go from what, I can kind of do it right now, but I still feel tan, right? And they would touch me, and it would go, and it was just this laughter they would be roaring. Just so you know, this was before church started, just so we're on the same page. So they're all doing this, right? And so then I'm interaction by touching them too, and then joking around, but they don't change, right? And so like it was back and forth, and then I turn around, and there's this kid that's sitting right in front of me, 2 years old probably. He's got just a long shirt, nothing else on, completely tired, completely exhausted, got snot running down his nose, and he's like this. He is afraid, his hands are clenched, and he just needs to be picked up. He's tired. He's an orphan without a father to hold him, right? And so I pick up this kid. He's afraid. I pick him up. He's on my chest, and his heart's it's just hauling. His heart is just going. And I hold it and I'm like, God, I don't know Creole to know what the pastor is saying, so you explain something to me. You communicate to me. You give me eyes to see. What are you trying to teach me? And he's like, I want you to be like this kid. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, listen, if you could just get rid of everything that you think you need and realize that, like, all you need is to be held by a father. If you could come to me, even with your hands being afraid of, I don't know what this is going to be. I could be rejected by this one. And let him scoop you up. Just hold him. And I held this kid. And I prayed over him and I loved him. And I sat there and I was like, God, just find a way to bless this kid. And he's like, hey, check his heart rate. The kid had fallen asleep almost instantly on my chest. Almost instantly. And as I'm holding him, I realized his heartbeat slowed down. His heartbeat matched my heartbeat as he was listening to mine. He became at peace as he was held. God's like, take a look at his hands. His hands that had been just so tight. As he fell asleep, opened up and he held me back. He's like, Benny, here's the thing, man. You hold on to so many things in this world that you think you need. But you can't embrace me until you let it go. Until you can let those things go. Now you have an emptiness that you can fill by hugging me. When I was in India, there's a guy that was a disciple of a pastor that's there, that he was in the wrong caste marriage, and there was the tension in there, and it was a hard existence, and they got pregnant, and they were so excited, and they went through the whole thing, and I was there at the time where she was giving birth, and she gave birth in a hospital. Her parents didn't love the marriage. They didn't love the fact that he was in a lower caste. Didn't go get him. Didn't wake him up. He was asleep. It was in the middle of the night. She lost the baby. The parents had taken the baby and essentially disposed of it. I'll say disposed because that's essentially the culture. Without him ever seeing, touching, being able to grieve with his wife. Talk about a man of just pouring spirit into mourning, right? And I watched as he couldn't handle some of the mourning and like it building and it not ending with a good result. But this man, I walked through like with them later, and we're walking through the hospital, and you can feel death. You can feel the spirit of death. I've been in some places where you feel like after I was in Haiti, you could smell death. You could feel death. You were around it. I've been around too much of that at some level, right? And now you're walking through these halls and you realize, oh my goodness, you've got a culture that's got a caste system that says, hey, you know what? You need to stay where you're at. You need to be subjugated. You need to stay there. And you have this religious understanding that, hey, you know what? Once you die, you're going to be reincarnated. So if you want to be reincarnated as something better, it's all based on if you accept your lot now. And if your lot is not great now, it's because you're being punished from last time. Do you have a huge value of life there? No, there isn't an honoring, a valuing of life. Those that are the least of those that are in the lowest caste system, you discard them. When I was down in Cambodia, I went to this place that was literally this massive mound of garbage that was on fire. And we went and we were serving and loving some of the people that live in the trash while it burns. And hearing stories of their loved ones who had died in the trash because they come on in with these front-end loaders and they're pushing the trash around and they're dropping the new stuff on. They don't care if people are in their way or not because they don't see a value in the life of the people that live in the trash. And so they'll run them over all the time. If you fall asleep in the wrong spot before the next load gets dropped over you, tough break, buddy. And I was in the midst of it and you're like, there's no value of life. When I was in Ukraine, right? One of the places that I ended up going to was this orphanage that was for all the kids that had been dropped off that had a physical or mental impairment. It was like, oh, Got a bad kid, I guess I'll drop him off over here. The workers that were there got to a place where they wouldn't name the children because they didn't want to get connected to somebody that they were going to have to say goodbye to. They would change their diapers once a week. Okay? South Africa. Malawi. How many places in Africa where there's been an AIDS epidemic, where there's also a lack of understanding, and they're saying, well, if this kid's got AIDS, they're pretty much cursed, but also I don't want to get it from them, so I'm going to displace them. They're on the outs. They don't belong. They're out here, and I can't come in contact with them lest I get it. Right? You guys want to know more of that story? Talk with the Vrumans. Right? They've put their heart, their blood, sweat, tear. Like, they understand the fact that every time that they go visit, it's the last time that they're going to see some of the kids. Maybe the only time that they see some of the kids. Why am I saying these examples? Because this is a real life situation. It's easier sometimes to see in the stark differences out there, but we do the same. The American church a lot of times will do the same too, of like, hey, we are going to love you completely when you look like us, when you know the right doctrine, when you have the right things that you're saying, you got the right clothes, the right... You know what I'm saying? When we add all the things, we say, hey, you know what? We're going to accept you when we can see the depravity that's going on at NMU campus. And we say, hey, you'll be blessed when you choose a better path. You see what I'm saying? This is an upside down thing where Jesus is saying, hey, blessed are you in this Ukrainian orphanage that's getting your diaper changed once a week. Blessed are you in Cambodia who lives in the trash. Blessed are you, this orphan in Haiti who just wants to be picked up. Blessed are you that are the least of these, those that are impoverished. And for us as humans, it's almost offensive because this feels like the opposite of blessing. We want to reinforce like, no, that person was cursed, and that person is cursed, and that person is cursed, and this person is cursed. What is the ultimate blessing? It's God's presence. God's presence. Before there was a curse in the garden, there was blessing in the garden. And Jesus is trying to restore blessing to people. And he's saying, you want to know what my Father's heart is? I am here with you. The Son of God has come, and he's saying, I'm blessing you, and I'm blessing you, and I'm blessed. My presence is with you. My presence isn't down in Jerusalem right now just for those that could make it into the temple. I've come to you. Do you guys hear that? You guys see that? Blessed are you. So it starts off with this poor of spirit, which leads into mourning. When you understand the emptiness, when you understand, for us in America, it's a different malady, right? Especially if you feel like I've got a house, I've got money, I've got a family, I've got comfort, I've got all these things. Marx is like, woe to you, like, be careful, like, because at some point in time, what it can do is affirm to you that I'm doing great on my own strength. But you're just as empty without his presence as the person that just has nothing. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's this mourning. So when you realize there's an emptiness that like, hey, actually my strength is not enough, it'll lead you to a mourning of the loss. Right? It'll make you into that spot of low and humble. Okay. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Realizing that we can't do this life on our own strength leads to an awareness of that emptiness. Mourning or avala was both a personal grieving of loss, but also a communal grieving of being exiled. And both of them centered on a brokenness of the world. And as you mourn those things, there's something inside you that desires for a repair of the brokenness. You want the brokenness fixed, right? In Hebrew, they would call it a tikkun. So this tikkun, you want a repair of the world. You want something that's going to heal. Okay? Blessed are those that are meek, for they'll inherit the earth. Meek, anav, it's the same word used for Moses, when sometimes translated humble, right? It's strength restrained. It's not a weakness, okay? When I realize that I've got a depravity, and when I realize that, like, hey, there's an emptiness inside of me that can only be filled by God, and then I get to a place where I'm like, oh, I got to mourn this, then you desire, oh, you know what? I need to be transformed. I need to get into his presence. It's like, I'm going to sit in the fire. Now, how many of us, do you guys remember when I talked about a silversmith who's got silver and he puts the silver in the fire and he waits. And he waits. And the dross comes to the surface and he skims off the dross, the top, the junk, the stuff that's not pure. Over and over and over, he does this. Until when? Until the silversmith can see his reflection. He puts you in this fire and you're like, man, God, I committed to you. I committed to this path and here I am and I feel like you invited me into a fire? And like every part of me is dying and being burned up and like, what am I supposed to do about this? And he's like, but my eyes are on you. The time that we think I am cursed and he can't even see me, he doesn't hear my prayers, and he's like, my eyes are fixed on you and I'm just waiting until I can see my reflection in you, right? This is that idea of meekness. It's a restrained strength where you're like, I am going to choose to stay in this. And sometimes those seasons are longer than we'd like. Okay? Here's a quick picture of a silver reflection. Isn't that cool? Anyways, I just found that it was cool, so I'm going to keep moving. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Okay? So there's two kinds of righteousness. One that's just, hey, I want what is right, just-wise, legal-wise. I've been wronged. I want reparations for it. That is a stunted version. It's a small version of the big version of righteousness. So the world that doesn't know God, that hasn't known the divinity of God, they're stuck here. This is the place where they're stuck, is I want justice back for me. Does that make sense? Okay. But blessed are you when you desire Sadiq. The righteousness that goes beyond just the legal justice. It includes relationships, communal equity, covenantal faithfulness. You want justice for everybody. You want what's right. You want a beauty for everybody. Okay, so now let's pause. So someone who's realized their emptiness becomes aware that they only have God. They mourn all their loss in life, including the time wasted trying to do it on their own strength. This gives them the courage to become meek and stay in the fire. As they're in the fire, they hunger and thirst for a broken self and a broken world to be repaired. It starts with wanting justice, but the deeper revelation is that justice is bigger than just legal justice. The longer they sit in that, there's a stretching that helps them see that justice that they deserve really is the door to understanding mercy. Because when you start realizing, wait a second, I actually don't want justice for myself because I've also wronged that person and I've wronged them and I've wronged them and I've wronged them. And then you start saying, man, it's not just about who's wronged me, but who have I wronged? That's an invitation to receive mercy. Does that make sense? This is the pivot point from justice to mercy. Now, we have a chiasm. So, back half of the chiasm, we're going to walk it through a little bit. Well, let me show this real quick. Blessed are the merciful, for they'll be shown mercy. Mercy, chesed, is a loyal, loving kindness. It's a covenantal term. It's more than just forgiveness. It's covenant in action. It's a choice to not give the bad deserved, and instead you offer kindness to the person that has harmed you. All right, Exodus 34 talks about Lord being compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, etc. Okay, so up until now, this transformation primarily been internal. I want you to see that. Say internal. Okay, so this transformation has been internal. I want you to visualize that this. Jesus said, hey, to another lady, hey, you want living water? I can put living water that comes up out of you, a spring out of you, and it's going to overflow. This is a good visual. The transformation, you start off with an empty vessel, maybe of bitter water that needs to be emptied. And what ends up doing is this transformation of these first blesseds, it's coming into his presence and letting him transform you into a place where it becomes this thing that changes you from the inside out, right? And when you go from this wanting justice for myself to I want to give mercy, that's when you start to overflow this vessel of living water. And who, if you're going to be merciful towards somebody, who are you going to be merciful towards? Somebody who wants justice against you, right? So, blessed are the... Oh, I jumped it too hard. Anyways, let me just focus on that for a second. So, the world has got people that are going through this transformation process. Does that make sense? That are trying to follow Jesus. But the world also has people that are not trying to go through this transformation process, that are the ones that more likely are going to be the ones that have hurt you, where you want to, in your flesh, give them justice back. and you said, actually, God, I'm going to give this to you. Can I have some kindness and some mercy to give to them? You guys see that? Okay. So you have this opportunity. Your first overflow is to have mercy on somebody. Okay? Second one, blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God. Okay? So we talked about this one mirrors blessed are the meek. What is the meek? It's you're sitting in that fire for a long time. You're getting purified. But once you're purified, what? You're purified by doing what? You're looking at God. Right? As you recognize, oh, wait a second, I was in this fire and I see him seeing me. You guys hear that? I see him seeing me. When you put your eyes on God, the Father, who's looking at you, and there's this thing that happens, you're going to see God because you're reflecting each other. Now, when I'm purified, my eyes are on him, but the people that see me are going to see what? They're going to see God. So not only is it, blessed am I that see God, it's blessed are the people around me that are going to see God through me. Right? The people that are in that spot of like, oh, I'm in the fire. I need some hope. How do I stay longer? You stay longer by putting your eyes on God. And if you can't put your eyes on God, put your eyes on somebody who is reflecting God and say, oh, how do I follow them to see? How do I put my eyes on them? Those of you that get to this place of like, hey, blessed are the pure in heart. You're pure in heart. You're not like, okay, now that I'm pure in heart, let me tell you where you're wrong and let me tell you where you're wrong and where you're missing it. No, your eyes don't come down to look at the people. Your eyes stay on him. When your eyes stay on him, goodness comes out to the people. The reflection goes this way. You guys see that? That's good. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they'll be called the children of God. This one's going to echo, blessed are those who mourn, for they'll be comforted. Those who are mourning, guess who gets to help comfort them? Guess who gets to be God with skin on for them? The peacemakers. Right? Do you guys see that? Blessed are the peacemakers. Now, I want to just pause real quick. Let's take a look at this. I want to talk about this. You got a husband, you got a wife, you've got some level of peace in between you, right? Now, some marriages, they ping pong from the wife side of things to the husband side, and you go back and forth trying to get this justice of like, you don't see me, you don't hear me, you don't see me or hear me, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. And at some level, what I'm going to try to do if I'm trying to lead you is to, where's the peace in the middle? Let's use this as an anchor. But it gets stunted. It's just like the righteousness. It's just like the judge. It gets stunted if you only focus on that piece in the middle. Do you hear me? Right? You can say, okay, the goal for our marriage, to have a good marriage, is only to live in that little thing that overlaps. But there's going to be a part of both of you that feels like they will never see this part of me. They'll never hear this part of me. They'll never know this part of me. Right? So what you ideally want to do is you want to stay in that piece and you want to expand it into the areas that aren't seen and aren't heard. And there's a tension that happens with that. Peacemakers. Anybody can make peace with somebody who's already at peace. Right? If you've got two parties that are already at peace, if I've got two countries that are already at peace, my job is really easy keeping the peace. At that level. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Like, as of this minute, I think there's a truce between Thailand and Cambodia. They stopped firing rockets at each other. Does that mean that the whole countries are completely at peace with each other? No, there's no shots being fired right this minute. Right? And we can focus on, well, if we could just stay in this little bubble here, we're great. But the truth is, they've got bigger things that they got to resolve. A peacemaker is this invitation into a really hard spot because both sides can't see the full picture. And as a peacemaker, that means that you kind of have to absorb that, right? As a peacemaker, what you're really doing is you're inviting both to expand how they see, how they hear, how they know, right? And so as a peacemaker, let's go back into here. Shalom, it's not just an absence of conflict or feeling of peace, it's wholeness. The Hebrew word for peace is a wholeness. I am trying to make it whole. I'm trying to make it right, fully, where you know what? I am fully seen, I am fully heard, you're fully seen, and you're fully heard, and we're both at peace, right? How that looks like when it's done right is you get to a place where the husband is at peace and the wife is at peace, and their overlap is communion. Can you guys see that? Not, this part of me is not at peace, but this part is, so I'm only going to show you this part of me anymore. You guys understand that? Okay, let me jump back. Peacemakers, they give peace and they lead others into wholeness, which is just like their Father. Our Heavenly Father, He'll meet you and He'll give you peace. He'll give you comfort. He'll meet you in that blessing, but He's not afraid to expand you, to put you into the spots that are tension in your life, because He's trying to bring a wholeness. So He's like, oh, you know what? This part over here is really janky, so I'm not going to touch it. No, He's like, we're going to touch this thing that's janky in your life because we actually need to make it whole. We need to make it right. We actually need to make it, healthy. We actually have to go into that spot that you don't want to go into. Is it because He's like, you know what? You got the one thing wrong with you. I got to focus on the one thing. No. Sometimes as humans, we feel like God is just nitpicking all the things that are wrong with us and hey, I got to highlight this thing that's broken and this thing that's screwed up and this. He's not Santa Claus doing a list of oh, that was naughty. Oh, I checked it twice. Double naughty. It's not that. That's not what God is doing. He's saying, what can I repair? What can I fix? What can I heal over and over again? And so He's going to lead you into those things. And He knows when it's whew, you know what? I got to take him out of the fire for a second. Fire's coming back again later. Usually, though, it's us that's it's too hot in this fire. I'm going to get out. And He's like, okay, job's not done. So, I'm going to invite you back into a different fire in your life to continue the process. Does that make sense? Okay. Peacemakers. They bring wholeness like their dad does, which is why they're going to be called children of God. They're people that go out of their way to try to bring wholeness, which means having uncomfortable conversations sometimes, uncomfortable standards sometimes, not allowing somebody to just live in the junk, right? You love them enough that you're hey, can I come into your mess and help you sort it out? Right? In which case, most people don't love people seeing their mess. And so usually they fight back. And when they fight back, you have a chance to say, am I going to fight back or I'm going to offer peace to the equation? Right? Okay. I'm going to keep going. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those persecuted. Who's going to persecute those that are righteous? When you look at the mirror of the chiasm, it's usually those that are depraved in spirit. Those that have a poverty of spirit, that are hurting, that are broken, that are empty. You're going to take it out on the one that is a witness to you that you are empty. When somebody is full and overflowing of life, you're it's a witness just living a life that's overflowing of goodness. And they're they've got something that I don't have, which is a testament to me and a witness to me that I actually have a poverty of spirit. I have an emptiness inside of me that I don't want to acknowledge. Do you guys see that? So you're in a spot where, guess what? You're gonna get persecuted sometimes, right? And the thing is, you're invited because you're you know what? I want to be like my Father. I want to be intimate with Him. I want to be in communion with Him. This is what God is doing, is repairing the world. So He's going to invite me into these situations to try to bring peace, to try to bring comfort, to try to bring life, to try to bring goodness to people that are depraved, people that have a poverty of spirit, that are empty, that don't want to be told that they're empty. And honestly, when they come, when somebody who is really healthy comes to somebody who's really unhealthy, they feel really uncomfortable. The world will tell you, hey, I need to spare their feelings. They don't feel comfortable with it. I need to give them all the space because they don't feel comfortable with me. Don't dim your light. Don't dim your light. It is an invitation for them to start the process of going from poverty to realizing their emptiness and their loss, and which is going to make them mourn. And when they mourn, there's going to be something inside of them that wants there to be justice. wants there to be a repair. And that meekness is going to invite them into a fire of their life that's going to get them to a spot where they want justice for themselves. But as they enter that, they realize, oh, but I deserve not great. I actually want to give mercy and receive mercy. And once they realize, I want to give mercy and receive mercy, they do that by seeing God. And when they start seeing God, people seeing them in that process, they're going to want to then go and be peace and comfort those that are in loss. And then they're going to say, you know what? I too can walk in a way that, like, you know what? You can take all the shots at me because I know you're not taking shots at me. You're taking shots at him. Right? Okay, so let's take a look at this again. This is how it would look if you go through the chiasm. And I want to emphasize a couple things. One being, Jesus is talking to a group of people that have been told their entire life that they're cursed, except for the Sanhedrin that are there, like the religious ones that came up from Judea. Everybody else has been said, you are out, you don't qualify, you've been cursed, you've been cursed. And he says, hey, blessed are they that are blessed. They're blessed, they're blessed, they're blessed, they're blessed. He's saying the original heart, the original intent of my Father, and I've been there since the beginning, is an overflow of blessing. And you have believed forever and ever and ever that there's this massive gap that until you do all of the right things on the outside, that after you do all of these things, now you can get into the presence of God. And I'm trying to tell you, it's not about after you do. It's I have come after you before you started. Like if we understand that Bennyville, me, I never pursued God on my own strength first. He first pursued me. He first brought his presence into my life to make me aware that his presence was always there. Right? You guys hear what I'm saying? You are blessed because I don't care if you're at the start of this journey, the end of this journey, he is the one that is blessing you by saying, my presence is with you, my presence is with you, my presence has always been with you. My presence has been near to you. And the kingdom of heaven is like, I understand when you feel like you aren't going to make it. I understand when you're mourning. I understand your loss. I understand your grief. But I am there, and I am transforming people to be there on my behalf too for you. And you're invited. You're invited, those of you who came from the Decapolis. You're invited who last week you had a demon inside of you. You're invited last week who was outcast and you were paralyzed. You're invited last week who smells like fish still. You're invited. All these people that are in this whole area that are watching are feeling an invitation to the presence of God. Not when they got their act together, not when they went to Jerusalem, not when they were the right bloodline to go into the temple, not when everything was all perfect, not when they understood all of the obedience, not when they understood with their knowledge all of the Torah and all of the understanding. It was actually, let's just start off with the fact that you may never speak in your entire life and you're still invited into my presence. Let me transform you by you just being with me. You hear that? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is what? Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is what? Listen, those of us that feel like I've been in church, I've known the things, I've done the things, I've sacrificed the things. It's not a matter of me stacking a bunch of things to prove my good legalistic Christianity that like I'm in, like, oh, I've done all of these things and now I'm blessed. He's saying from start to last, it came from me. From start to last, everywhere on this journey, you're invited, you're invited, you're invited, you're invited. Don't disqualify yourself. And don't let somebody else disqualify you. I have said that you are invited into my presence. Let's start at square one. I don't care where you are at in this transformation. You're invited into my presence. I enjoy you. I like you. I want to be with you. I was thinking about you when you were in your mother's womb, and I was saying, this is what I want to put in this one. This is what I want to put in this one. I can't wait for this to come out of that one. When you mourned, guess what? I grieved too. I can understand comforting you, right? He goes through the process of doing it all. There's a blessing and an invitation of it doesn't matter how much you know or how perfect you are, how right you are in this world's standards. He says, you're invited to come to me. You're invited to come. Last week we touched on this, and I want to just focus on it again real quick. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. This is Pastor Benny's perspective. I want to be clear, this is my perspective of how I read this text. Okay? I invite you to wrestle with it and say, God, show me. But how I see this, and I say this because I am a dude that sees not super clearly through a glass, as the Bible says. Why? Because I'm human, right? I see this as the crowds, all these people that are around him. Some that are religious, but most that are not. And Jesus starts talking to his disciples. And we talked last week that the term for a mamzer is you start calling the people the thems and the theys, the groups that aren't there. And he says to the disciples, you want to follow me? You want to know what my kingdom is about? Blessed are they. That group of people that are poor in spirit. And blessed are they that mourn over there. They're going to be comforted. Blessed are the meek over there. They're going to inherit the earth. Blessed are those ones over there that hunger and thirst for righteousness. They're going to be filled. And they're probably thinking, who's going to comfort them? Who's going to fill them? Who's going to do those things? You are, right? I am. Like, see, that's the invitation once you finally get there, once you realize it. Blessed are the merciful, for they're going to be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they're going to see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted in righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It's the pronouns are theys, right? Thems, those. Then in 11 it says, blessed are you. And I think, again, there's a lot of debate over it, if you get into those circles. But me personally, I think that Jesus is calling them theys and those and thems. And I think he pauses, and instead of focusing on his disciples in front of him, I think he starts looking at those groups that are the theys and the those and the thems and says, but blessed are you. Blessed are you when people insult you, when they persecute you falsely and say all kinds of evil against you because of me, because you've been transformed by me, because you came into the presence of me. He's saying, I am connected to God. And when you realize that you're connected to me, you're going to be persecuted. You're going to be insulted. So rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward. I think he's saying that to the least of them in the group. Do you guys see that? For in the same way, they. Pause for a second. Who would be the normal yous that he'd be talking about? He'd be talking to the religious elite over and over again. And the theys would be the mamzers. And here he flips and says, blessed are you who is out. Blessed is you who is out. Blessed are you. Also, in the same way, they. For the first time, I think the religious elite became the they. They persecuted the prophets who were before you. So when you understand the depth of grace that I'm inviting you into, that's going to transform your life, that's going to bring you from a poverty of spirit through mourning and loss and grieving, you're going to be the one that's going to offer mercy and kindness to those that think they've already got it. The people that are trying to tell you your whole life that you're not good enough, you're excluded, you're out, you're out, you're out, you're going to have a chance to invite them into wrestling with grace and goodness. And they're going to be the ones that are going to persecute you. You're going to have to offer peace to them. You're the one that's going to have to go and be peacemakers, the people that are coming against you, because you see God and they're going to be offended that you're seeing God because they're the ones that feel like they deserve it. It's like you're in good company. They persecuted the ones before you, but if you want to be like me, blessed are you if you're going to attach your name to me, because I'm going to overflow goodness through you. Is that an easy calling? You want to know what the kingdom of heaven, you want to talk about flipping things upside down. He's saying, listen, all you've ever been told by this group of people, by the ones that I'm going to call a they, that think that they're the ones that are in, I'm going to say, as of right now, they're excluded. And you know what? Woe to them. They need to become more like children. They got to be reborn. They've got to have an understanding that it's not an outside-in revelation. It's an inside-out transformation. Do you guys hear that? Ah, Heavenly Father, I ask, I plead with you, please, please, please transform me, transform my family, transform this church into something that looks like you, that has the courage to stay in the fire when we need to be in the fire, that has the courage to bring peace to those that are going to fight against us and wholeness to those that don't want wholeness. That we're willing to love and be persecuted because of the abundance of grace and blessing that those that are too religious to accept would see. God, help us not put our confidence in the things that we know. Help us put our confidence in you. Help us understanding that like before there was curse, there was blessing. God, you started with blessing. Your heart was blessing. And you wanted to be just abundant with blessing to those that felt like they didn't deserve it. And God, it's the kindness of blessing people that don't feel like they deserve blessing that will lead to their repentance. They're turning, they're coming home. God, may our message be to the prodigal, Father's not upset with you. He's longing for your return. God, help us glorify your name. Help us know your name. Help us know your goodness. Amen. Reflections? I didn't put them on there for you today. Narrate back to me. What is God speaking to you? What are your reflections you want to take away from today? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, pray for the wholeness of Israel. It's not just a absence of conflict. And they're not going to be whole until they know him. Yeah. What else you guys got? Mercy triumphs over judgment. It's almost like they should write that in the Bible somewhere. Pastor joke. Meekness is strength restrained. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's good. Also reminds me of gentleness. I used to think that gentleness was like super cool and the fruit. It's like, what's this deal with gentleness? It's kind of like meekness. I heard a statement once that gentleness is reserved for the strong. And just like peace, it's easy to be gentle towards somebody that loves you. But when you have somebody that comes against you, it takes a lot of restrained strength to say, I'm going to choose to be gentle and give a gentle word when I want to send fire back. Yeah. Other reflections from today? When we choose to forgive people, we shouldn't define them no longer by what they did to us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, justice is a lot of times you want to define by the doing, and mercy you realize who they are being, right? Okay, go ahead. Somebody else said something. In God, the whole world lives and breathes and has its being. Put that in the book too. Hmm. Mm-hmm. 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 Layers and layers and layers of flesh that's been under. You mentioned our free will and choice of right or wrong. I want to take it a step back before then. You had a tree of life and a tree of knowledge of good and evil, which led to death, right? Part of the illusion that we have in this world is that we're trying to train up our kids how to pick right from wrong. And the earlier we pick right from wrong, the better suited they are to pick right. And all we're doing is ingraining them in the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The original choice is, are you going to choose life or are you going to choose death? Right? It's not about right or wrong. It's about, are you choosing things that bring life or are you choosing things that bring death? For those that can see that. Other reflections? Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Oh, we're getting into the you have heard it said, but I say unto you is a coming soon. Listen, the way that we're going through Matthew, that should be in the next 18 months. Just kidding. Helen, you said you had something? Yeah. I love that it's so much. And we have a father of invitation. I grew up just in my humanity, right? My humanness. I saw it more as expectation, obligation. And part of my transformation is understanding that it's an invitation. Invitation to transformation. It's good. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's been with. Listen, there's a blessing that is on all of you today. He is with you. He sees you. He hears you. He knows you. The question is whether or not we can have eyes to see that his blessing and his presence has always been with us. See that? What else? Okay. What we're going to do now is habit with our church is that we practice just getting into groups with some people around you and just spending some time in prayer. We want to be somebody that prays blessing over those that are around us. That blessing now today is an invitation. Hey, you might be blessing somebody and it might look like giving peace to somewhere there's tension. It might be mourning with somebody who's got loss. It might be somebody who wants justice and you need to invite mercy, right? It might just be that their day is awful. And it might just be that their day is awesome and you get to celebrate with them, right? All of those things, because in the human experience, you have the whole spectrum. So what we're going to do is we're going to break up into groups, and I'm going to encourage you, pray with them, get to know with them. Find that spot of communion with them where you can say, hey, how can I come alongside you and invite God and his presence? It might be that you can't see God. Find somebody that you think can see God because they can bring God's awareness into the prayer. Does that make sense? We bless people here, not so that it stays here, so we practice so that we can bless those out there. Because we're going to have people that aren't looking to be in the transformation. That's the whole point of the Beatitudes, is you find a way to bless and honor, love, mourn with, cherish, bring peace to those out there. Heavenly Father, give us eyes to see you, give us ears to hear you, give us a heart that's soft to you, and the courage to follow you. Give us the courage to say, I'm in for this journey. I don't know how long each step takes, but I trust you at the wheel. And then, God, give us the grace to actually trust you at the wheel. That's this in your name. Amen.